Well, the Conservatives say that this is all about taxes. They also say that there is a clear decision between them. They want to keep taxes going down, and the Labour Party who want to raise taxes. Does it really add up to that? Well, come and have a look at the manifesto and some of these costings, because actually it's a subtly different story when we dig into it. And I have dug into it here, and here you can see some of the numbers that the Conservatives think that they will be effectively implementing if they were to get into government again. These bars are showing you how much they want to cut in taxes for these kind of future years, going out from the next Parliament all the way through to 2029 to 2030. Those are tax cuts. They also have a certain amount of money-raising schemes, so we'll go into those in just a second. And also there are some spending measures. Look, the little green bar over there. Now, that is the big picture of this manifesto. All of those measures you've been hearing about, they're contained within these bars because this is where the money is. But let's just look at the actual detail here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this year, the final year of this forecast horizon, and we're going to break it down. So let's take those bars and we'll put them over here. And this will give you a sense. What you have is money going out, money going in rather. So that's money being raised by the Treasury, and then that's money going out. So there's your taxes, there's your spending. And let's just break down in particular this bit here. Given there is so much focus on taxes, what is this bar actually accounted for? Well, you've got employee NICs, so that is essentially cutting national insurance by another 2p and trying to get it to be halved by the end of the Parliament. That's a lot of money. It's £10.3 billion. So that is the biggest chunk by far of any of this money going out. But there are other bits and pieces as well. So you heard about the fact that the Tories want to abolish self-employed NICs. That's £2.6 billion. Not quite so much. I mean, it's eye-catching, but it's not actually quite so generous because it's only a smaller section of the population who are facing that. But, of course, all of this raises the question, given how much we've got in the way of tax cuts here, all of that blue bit is tax cuts, does this mean that the tax burden, the overall amount that we're paying, is going to be lower at the end of the next Parliament? Well, let's have a look at it. OK, so this is the tax burden, and this is really important because this is all of the taxes that we pay, not just income tax, not just national insurance, VAT, everything, corporation tax, as a percentage of GDP. And what you can see here is going all the way back to 1948, so very high after the war. It came down, it's bounced around, and it's been mostly within this kind of range. But post-pandemic, it's come up a lot, post-energy price shock as well. And look at how high it is at the moment. The ongoing plan, so the plans right now from the government, see it going even higher, so getting up to the highest level that we've seen since the 1940s. Does that change as a result of this manifesto? The short answer is yes, it does, but maybe not as much as many Tories would like, because look at how that line actually changes. That's what happens to the tax burden as a result of those tax cuts you've just seen. There is a difference between what the kind of profile was going to be and where we might head if those plans are implemented. That's £17.2 billion worth of tax cuts, but it's not quite enough to see that line go down. It's going up, isn't it? It's still going up. And actually, if we draw a line between the final year of next Parliament and all the way back in the 1940s, that is a new 80-year high. So even after those tax cuts we've just talked about, even after all of that, the UK will still see its overall tax burden. All of us will still be paying higher taxes at the end of next Parliament than we are now. That's the key point here. Obviously, you can make the point under the Lib Dems, under the Labour Party, it might well be higher, but nonetheless, that is the point at the moment. So that's the tax side of things. As for kind of, how you're raising that money, and that's a big question here, where does that red bar come from? Because it's really important here, because you need these bars to equal out if you're going to have a balanced budget, or rather, if you're going to meet your fiscal rules that this government has. So where does that money come from? Well, in short, it's two main sources. Some of it is anti-avoidance measures. That will supposedly bring in £6 billion. But the other bit is welfare reform. That's £12 billion through essentially making welfare even tighter, even tougher. And these are big sums, and there are also big question marks over whether you are actually able to raise that money. So that is the issue, I think, for the Conservative Party. It's worth saying as well, there are various spending measures too, and at some point we can kind of go into them in more depth, but it's relatively small in the grand scheme of things when you kind of net everything out. And that's partly because, as well as having increases in defence spending, some of that is equalled out by basically more austerity in certain departments within government. But the broad picture here is certainly lots of money being raised from things that people, that might be quite hard to achieve, which is funding tax cuts which are certainly significant, but they're not quite enough to see that overall tax burden actually coming down.